All right, so welcome back. I hope you have enjoyed your free time, spring break that we just finished. So we're going to continue on and learning more about other plants that need pruning and or other plants that are often, for the most part, abused because people don't understand how to prune them properly. They are some of the easiest plant to prune, and it's amazing how people manage to get them wrong. But before we start with those, let me show you some examples or an example of a traveler's palm that was no longer is alive, located at Naples Island, at a home of a member from the garden club that planted it a while back. And so she invited me to go and remove some of these offshoots. And so here's a photograph of the plant as we found it. And so immediately I realized that it needed a little bit of help. And with the help of Frank, a previous student of the program, we dug out some of the babies or the offshoots. Now, none of those made it, but we tried. And then we also cleaned some of those leaves so that at the end, what you're going to have is a very nice, clean individual that looks a million times better than how it was before. So this, for a while, was one of the best travelers palms in Long Beach. It is no longer alive, but there's a few more that I found yet. And so what we are going to be concentrating on are going to be the grass or the grass-like individuals or plants. So here we have an example of a cape rush, or they're also known as restios. They kind of look like bamboo. And so what's very important for you to understand with a lot of these grass-like looking plants is that their growing bud is going to be below the soil line, which means that ideally, if you are going to prune them, you would need to cut them as close to the ground as possible. Yes, that would be defeating several purposes. Number one, ideally, like the photograph you see right now, it's perfect. It does not need any pruning right now. But as the plants get older, you can remove some of the shoots to kind of clean them up. But the easiest and the best way is to simply cut them to the ground, where for a certain period of time, you are not going to have a plant there, but it will recover. And so it is very important that you let the person know that it's going to look empty for a few weeks, few months, but the plants will come back and they're going to look a million times better. Ideally, this should be done, if not every year, every 2 years, just to keep them nice and keep them clean. So that is going to be the main thing. Cut them as close to the ground as possible. K-brush, as you can see right here, and with a different photograph, it looks natural. It looks perfect. It looks like a kind of like a grass field or a meadow, and it looks nice. So that does not require any kind of work. Here's the same Cape brush. Sometimes you will find it with leaves, sometimes without. In a small area, just being allowed to grow naturally. From different angles, you can see how they'll keep on getting a little bit wider and wider until they fill in some of those gaps. And you can see here mixed with other native plants. This is what you don't want to do. And here's a perfect example where it is a very common landscape feature to create a dry creek with rocks. I understand there's a need for water, but we don't have the water. And you're gonna plant or put plants around the rocks to soften the area. In the design, it looks very, very good. And if allowed to grow naturally, it looks very, very good. However, people do not understand the plant. And so here is where they have cut every single of these restios in half, and now the plants are being made into some kind of square. And this is not the right type of pruning, although you will see it everywhere. It is a park, it is a Long Beach park, and I understand that sometimes they're trying to justify that they are working, but this is probably not the best way to justify by butchering and cutting this plant in half. And as you look at some of these other photographs, they could have probably done some better job with some of the other shrubs instead of just cutting every of these grass-looking things, restios in half, as you can also see right here. So not the best way. And this plant here is a dacilarium. It's like an agave. They have no idea what it is, and they are treating it in the same way as the restios right here. They are simply cutting it in half without having the need whatsoever for it to be cut. So again, if you need to prune it, first of all, it's gonna make sure that it's not part of the landscape or it wasn't meant to be natural. But if you need to prune it, please cut them as close to the ground as possible, so that they don't look as butcher as you see here. You see the same thing in some of our residential area. This is Naples Island, and this here is that Dacilarium, kind of the agave looking thing. That looks natural here, very nice, but in the background, you see the restios that have also been cut in half. So not good. Here's a close-up of them. So cut in half, they're making their way back, but eventually all of this stubs, smaller branches are going to die, and then they're going to be brown, and they're not going to be happy, and then it's not going to look good. So make sure you cut them as close to the ground as possible. The next grass-like looking plant is going to be known as rush or rushes. There are some California native rushes and some European, and they're also are used now extensively around water features or dry creeks, because ideally in the wild you would find them associated with water. Here is Chabot College, where they have used them as mass planting. And here you can see where it just creates a nice wall next to the bicycle rack. Here is a different area, so you can see the rushes just all around, and then some of the grasses that we'll talk about later. But here's some of the rushes. You may find the curly rush, which have used to put on top of this Irish Pokemon. But this is a curly rush, so just a selection for having the twisted stems. This is what you don't want to see. This is, I think it's the CVS pharmacy or one of those pharmacies right by the circle on Zemino and PCH. You happen to be in the area, you can see exactly this. So sometime in the past, they made a ball out of the plant, and it's sprouting, but you can still see where they have literally butchered it. It's supposed to be a dry creek type, a naturalized type. There's some natives. So why would they hack the plants like this? If there's a problem with visibility, if there's a problem with something else, ideally this might not be the right plant in the right location. So maybe that's what you need to look into instead of just hacking them back like this. So here's a few more. Some of them prune a little bit earlier than others. And some of the wheat palm wasn't even taken out, as you can see right here. So it's coming back, but once again, they just kind of made a ball right here and a ball right here. And they even, I think they might even cut some of those because they look cut at the top after the matter. And you can see some of these other ones here and there, and one that was just recently cut right here. Not good. Once again, growing pole shoots are going to be below the ground, so cut them a lot lower than what you see right here to keep all of this brown material that is dead from looking ugly. And then we have the true grasses. So here's our Mexican feather grass. Now kind of looking a little bit raggedy because you can see the nice brownish color. Obviously, that might be good or that might be bad depending on the season, which is getting close to the point where it needs to be rejuvenated and needs to be cut to the ground. Keep in mind that grasses has been fed upon by animals for millions of years. So it is part of their evolution to tolerate being cut back severely. And an animal, an elephant, a bigger mammal can come through here and literally munch this grass almost to the ground. And in a matter of time, it'll come back, it'll regrow back, and it'll keep on providing food for the animals as well as still grow and set seeds and all of that. So it is something that they have evolved to be fed upon because grasses do provide one of the most important sustenance for herbivore animals. And that's why we're able to cut them severely and they'll come back. Here is a different example, just a nice clumping of our Mexican feather grass. Here is a combination of the two. So in some of the modern architectures, they started to minimize some of the woody shrubs, and they have started to put just a combination of different types of grass-like individuals. So in the front, you have your sedges, and then in the back, you have your purple fountain grass as an example. And here's the entryway. So looking from a different angle. So you have your purple fountain grass on the left, and you have your sedge on the right. And looking inside, this is what's going to happen. And notice brown leaves, neutral, cutting back to the ground. Here's some purple needle grass or a different type of native grass, here creating a wildflower meadow. And another very important thing is the softening of the walkways or the cement areas. So whenever possible, allow the plants to gently lean over onto the walkway. It is also horrible when people want to keep the plants away from the walkway, which are meant to soften the harsh cement. And they go through here and they are just going to hedge them and trim them and cut them just on one side. Again, if you need to cut them back, then cut them back at the ground level, let them start all over again, and it's going to look 100 million times better. So natural meadow right here. And also from a different side, you can see here nicely softening and even having some nice shadows on the walkway, as you can see here. And here in the front area, you can see here with a few other plants. Here's a different, this is a miscanthus or Chinese grass. And again, just a very nice large clump. And you can see the flowers of the grass that kind of looks very nice and soft and even matches the planting on the top. Here's in some of the other institutions where they have put some native plants. And here's some of the native deer grass that can be quite big and will require pruning to the ground. Here's where, once again, it makes a nice soften on the edge, soft edge of the cement. Looks very nice. And even in our Long Beach Parkway, so this is Park and I guess it's Vista. There's roundabouts and you have some beautiful fountain grass that look quite nice in the natural pattern. This is what you don't want to do. This is what people are doing. So making boxes and balls. So they made a box and ball out of this. It looks like a plumbago, and they created some kind of ball pillar out of this fountain grass and the one over here. This is the Chinese miscanthus or Chinese grass. And once again, they have created some kind of hedge here, which is fine for the shrub, but it is not fine or good for the grass. The grass obviously doesn't deserve that. So this is supposed to look natural, supposed to come all the way up here and have all those flowers and everything else. But somebody's getting paid to cut it like this and create balls and boxes. Once again, I would cut it at the edge of the cement, just take my shears and cut it all the way to the ground and let it recover and come up a million times better. There will be the cases where pruning is not going to be necessary. That would be the case of our blue fescue or fescue grass. So here's a small one. I challenge people to find somebody who would hack it. I think I may have found it. May have some photos I need to look for. When somebody actually pruned it, why? It's not necessary. It's so small that it will not never need it. But guess what? I'm sure people have pruned it and hacked it at one point or another. Here, in softening the edge of the cement, and this fountain grass needs some pruning, needs some help. It's not looking as hot. Just cut it to the ground, water it, you fertilize it a little. It'll be a million times better. And then the other grass-like individuals, so the previous ones were the true grasses. And then you also have the sedges. Here is a wildflower meadow, and the sedges are going to be, have become really popular for the no-mow type landscape or lawn. And so here is an area that is completely covered in green. And so that is your sedges. So they can fill in the gap. And all they require, if they don't look good, is to literally get a mowing service. So once or twice a year, when they're not looking as nice, you can run a lawnmower, cut them back to the ground, and they'll recover a million times better. Here is some of the bronze sedges. This is Carex buchanii, or they have brought or selected many other forms, different colors if they don't want green, just to kind of have a little more color or something different. So this is a sedge, and this bronze color looks kind of brown and dead, but that is the natural selection of what they intended on planting. Here's this is, I think, is the Holiday Inn on Carson and Conant. Sorry, Lakewood and Conant. It's a hotel. The Starbucks is right here, and that's why I stopped for coffee. And I saw this. They are shearing it. So here they planted several stages, and they look good. And they already started to shear them, and they're creating some kind of disc. And so here's where they have stopped for a break, and you can see the line where they have stopped, and you can see the ones that will get at the haircut later on, and the ones that they finished. This is too early. As you can see with the ones that are getting the haircut, they're still quite small. And so this is probably done almost every 2 to 3 months, and it should be maybe once or twice a year. And again, they're justifying their job. They're coming through here, and they're hedging the bougainvillea in the back, and they're kind of also giving this sage haircut. But it's not necessary. Let them get twice the size of what you see here. They'll look much nicer. They'll fill in some of these gaps. And then when it's getting too rowdy, too busy, then you can go ahead and give them that haircut. Because again, I don't know about the discs. Just cut it to the ground and they'll come back. So hedge shears, for hedges, for grasses or this sedges, I guess it's working for them. And then we'll have some other grass-looking plants. Next on Thursday, I'll put one about flax and a bunch of other interesting plants that also get butchered. But here's a really nice combination of our fountain grass, the pink fountain grass, and then our Australian Dianella. So this is the flax lily. And then we have the Japanese sweet flag that's in front. Very nice use of those three plants. The smaller one towards the front so that it's not going to be too intrusive. It's not going to go too far out in the walkway. But those could also be just given a haircut all the way to the ground. And here's a close-up of the three individuals for you to see. The Japanese sweet flag, genus Acorus right here. Here's the LAC campus when they build that dry creek. And once again, why would you give them a haircut? It's a naturalized area. You need to let them grow natural and let it get out of control. This is not a manicure garden, but again, they've been cut. So at least I can show you the example of where they have probably cut it a couple of inches above the ground, creating this horrid scenery. And here's a different view. That is the Dianella, the other one. And we also have the examples of mondo grass. And once again, I'll challenge anybody to go out there and find a butchered mondo grass. It's out there. I've seen it. Why? I don't know. It's so small that if you just plant it and let it be, it'll do its thing. But people will find a way to butcher it and prune it, but not necessary. And then there's Lomandra, which is a Australian grass-like plant. Here used in mass underneath some of these trees, looking very, very nice. And here's a different view of this other plant. And so when you go around the corner there, you can see Lomandra with a few other plants. So those are also could be treated just like a grass when it needs a pruning. Just cut it to the ground. And so with that, I will end this session. And Thursday, I will put another one, a little bit short, but on the other plants and maybe give you some ideas of how to put them. All right, have a good night. Take care. Bye.